So I watched the King Talk. LaPeep's King Talk. And one of the things the guys were saying on King Talk was that women have to, I guess it comes back to the compatibility talk, or could, I guess. But they were discussing how women, when we choose mates, especially in our 20s, we choose mates based off of physical features in opposed to security, whereas other races, they choose mates off of security and not the way we choose mates. What do you guys think about that? Do you think we do that?
I think so. I think, like you said, in our 20s. So I definitely agree with that in my 20s, that I didn't look for, maybe the security and all that stuff. I was looking based off of looks and how much money you had, unfortunately. Again, in my 20s. So
Hey, that's security.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, true. But my perspective is definitely different now. But yeah, I could see that. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Adela.
Okay. I don't think it's limited to 20s. I think it's all about your state of being. I know grown adults who choose, environments that are not worthy of them. And a lot of it is because they're not worthy of anything more than that. So at the root of it, you attract what you are. And so, if you are attracting certain people and certain, outcomes, at some point you have to look at yourself and start asking, why am I attracting this? And so I don't think it has anything to do with age. I know people who married out of high school and they're still together. And so, that was before they entered into their 20s. I think a lot of it has to do with, how you perceive whatever it is that's going on around you, and what it is that who it is that you actually are, which dictates what you are going to attract, no matter what your age is. I think age plays a part into, like your upbringing and your environment. And there are certain individuals who were nurtured where like those skills and that knowledge base was nurtured a lot more at a younger age, where like, if we're comparing it to like, younger people are like, Black people. Some of us didn't necessarily come from a household that nurtured, that development. And so we've had to teach ourselves. And so some of us learn it sooner, some of us learn it later, some of us don't learn it at all. And so, I think it's completely catered to that individual.
Well, I was really talking about myself because I work in the entertainment pretty much industry. So back in my 20s, the type of guy I wanted in my 20s is totally opposite from the guy that I want right now. So that's why I said, for me, when I was younger, I was looking at, a different type of caliber of man. I mean, I don't want that same type of man. I want something different. But being in the entertainment industry, you come across, a lot of what word am I looking for? Shantae, you've been there.
Well, what I was going to say is that I think men and women both put appearances or attractive, what they deem attractive, physically attractive, as a priority. I think it matters more when you are younger because you do have a little less limit of life experience. So I think your 20s is about learning and growing. So if you do come from a family that have given you a good baseline to draw from, then as you're developing and coming into your own in your 20s, you may make, I guess, fewer of the mistakes than a 20-year-old who doesn't have that upbringing, that grounding that a family, a tight-knit family or a family that has values and stuff like that will provide you. But I think what happens is a lot of times women pretend that, I don't want to say pretend, maybe. All right, let me call it what it is. They may try to say that that they suggest that attractiveness or physical features aren't as important to them as other things, right? But I kind of liken the physical attractiveness to like a job interview. The physical aspect is what's going to get your foot in the door. Doesn't mean it'll get you the job, but it'll get your foot in the door, because it has to be something on the onset that is going to even allow you to open up your time and energies to invest in somebody, right? Unless you're put in a situation where you gradually get to know the person, like at a at your job, or at church, or some event that push you in a place where you get to learn about the person. So although the physical attractiveness might not be there, as women, I think we can separate better than men with, looking beyond the physical attractiveness. But I know, like, I have just like read, I have a habit of reading studies. That's just my thing. I like watching documentaries and, reading studies and stuff like that. And one of the ones that I came across two that came across regarding this is that they say that in their 20s, men care about looks 4 times as more than women do, and women care 3 times more about the personality. Not to say that women don't care about physical, attractiveness, but I think for them, they learn earlier on that personality compatibility matters more than the physical attraction. There was also another one that suggests that women value physical attractiveness in a potential mate far more than what they say that they do. So I think we probably lie about it more than men do. But I really believe, though, that in terms of maturity wise, that we learn quicker that the physical attractiveness is one aspect and may not necessarily be the primary aspect of a relationship or somebody that you're going to engage.
Yeah, Mistaken, you made a point about how in that study it talked about how, men at a certain age, they were more inclined to be attracted to a woman, or they look for physical attractiveness, whereas women were more closer to personality types. And I think that really speaks to the upbringing of, boys to men in a sense, or even just in that case, maybe boys to teens, or whatever the case may be, that typically a man's sexual attraction to a woman is less about the actual woman and more about competing with other men. And so if, thinking about that study, it's like, how do I say this? It's interesting because it's like, and I hope no one comes from you when I say this, but it's like when you think about how a man is reared and how he's brought up to understand what it means to be a man, it's never exactly spoken to in, you're a man because of X, Y, and Z. It's typically spoken to in the sense of you're a man because you're not a woman, and it doesn't exactly speak to it in the way that it should speak to it. And so I guess a little tidbit on that is where you're talking about how, men are more focused on physical attractiveness. And I think I would even say I've heard women today say that they are more inclined to physical attractiveness versus, they want that more importantly, but not more importantly, but it's neck and neck when it comes to stability, but it's also, they want that physical attractive aspect to be the main factor. And there's, it's up in the air. And I would say a woman's attractiveness to a man, I think, is less about his physical nature. If we really look at it for what it is, it's more about how safe she feels with that man. And so when a woman feels safe with a man, she won't look at him physically and say, okay, he doesn't look all like this or all like that. She just genuinely says, okay, I feel safe with him. Because as a woman, and there's actually studies, and Mistaken, you can look at this if you like to, and I can send them to you if you like, because I like reading studies too. But there's a study that actually talks about the difference between the relationship towards fear as it pertains to male and female. And actually, men do not have the same response to fear that women have. It's not, a man walking from the store to his car through a parking lot. He's not going to feel fearful. Whereas a woman, if she does it, it's a whole experience where she's completely like tuned into her surroundings and her environment, because that fear factor is there. When men are faced with fear, they look at it from a perspective of, this is an opportunity for me to call to action, to jump into action. Whereas a woman, because society has made her feel like she is not strong enough, or because she is the more vulnerable person, which she is a vulnerable individual, and which she is the more vulnerable individual, when she's faced with fear, it comes across as, I have to like fold into myself, and I have to become more softer, or more, I can't fight back. And so one of the things that I guess men and women have to become more aware of and more knowledgeable of is that when it comes to women, you have to create a space for her to say that I feel safe with you. And in fact, women consciously or subconsciously will say, trustworthiness is also another way of saying I feel safe with you. They take trustworthiness and they apply it to the relationship. And if I don't feel that I can trust you, then I don't feel safe with you. And so I'm saying all of that to say that it's important for women to not only see physical factors or physical attributes as being important, but it's more important, in my opinion, that you look at it from a stability aspect. How can this man show up in your life, in a way where his character, his integrity, where his scruples are actually going to be beneficial to you, well beyond when the old age comes in and, his ears are getting bigger, his hair comes out his ears and his nose, things of that nature, And so when we look at it from that perspective, we have to consider that. Half the time when we look at somebody who's attractive to us, we're looking at them as a mirror, and we're looking at them like, what is it about them that I also see in myself that I want to actually exploit within them to help me fix something within myself that I may not be aware of? And so when we're looking at this really attractive man, it may be a way of telling us subconsciously that you may or may not feel as attractive, but you want to be next to them to find out how they made themselves feel that way so that you can regain that attractiveness with yourself. If that makes sense at all. I don't know if that makes sense, but